Forest lay before me, a sprawling expanse of towering trees where the wind whispered through their leaves like the gentle breath of ancient giants. My name is Michael, and I had always found solace in the heart of the wilderness. On this particular day, I set out on a hike through the dense forest, eager to lose myself in the tranquility of nature. The journey began at the forest's car park, where I parked my car, gathered my backpack, and locked the vehicle with a resounding click. A sense of excitement filled me as I stepped onto the forest path, the soft earth beneath my boots. I took a deep breath, savouring the crisp, earthy scent that enveloped me. Hours passed as I ventured deeper into the woods. The only company I had was the rustling leaves and the occasional chirp of a bird. However, as the hours wore on, an unsettling feeling began to creep over me. It was a sensation I couldn't quite define, a whisper at the edge of my awareness that left me on edge. The feeling that I was not alone, that something or someone was watching me. I shook off the unease as mere paranoia, reminding myself that I was the only one on this trail. I continued my hike, the eerie feeling still tugging at the corners of my consciousness. It wasn't long before I started to hear faint, almost imperceptible footsteps behind. I stopped dead in my tracks, and the footsteps stopped too. The forest fell into an eerie silence. Only the wind's mournful whisper persisted. I resumed walking, and the footsteps resumed as well, mirroring my every move. Dread settled in my chest like a heavy stone, my heart pounding in rhythm with the mysterious steps. I felt the unmistakable sensation of being pursued. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone in these woods anymore. As my unease grew, I made the decision to turn back and head towards the car park. I quickened my pace, but the footsteps behind me quickened too. Panic rose within me as I continued to hear those relentless, ghostly steps echoing my own. I broke into a run, my breaths quick and shallow as I fled along the forest path. With each step, I could hear the steps behind me growing louder and faster. The chilling feeling that I was being pursued coursed through me. My lungs burned as I pushed myself to move faster, the fear gnawing at my heels. And then, just as I felt the invisible presence draw near, I spotted a fallen tree ahead. Without hesitation, I leapt over it and scrambled inside a hollowed-out log. My breath ragged, I dared not look back, fearing what I might see. The footsteps continued thundering past me. I held my breath, listening to the frantic rhythm of the shoes striking the earth as the pursuer sprinted past. I was relieved to hear the distance between us grow. I remained hidden, trembling with anxiety as I tried to make sense of the situation. The seconds felt like hours, and the only sounds were the whisper of the trees and the echo of my heartbeat. The footsteps ceased altogether, and I dared to peek out of the log. There was no sign of a man. His presence had disappeared as mysteriously as it had come. Then, a sound cut through the silence. It was a scream, a raw and agonized cry that tore through the woods. The wails echoed through the trees, growing louder, then quieter, as the man ran around searching for me. The sounds of his torment filled the forest, but I knew I could not stay there. I waited for over an hour until the daylight began to fade. With one last glance around, I decided to make a run for it. I left my hiding place and sprinted along the forest path. Desperate to escape the eerie presence that had haunted me, I reached the car park without seeing or hearing the man again, my heart pounding with the fear and uncertainty of the ordeal. I unlocked my car, jumped in, and sped away, leaving the forest behind me. The memories of that chilling hike would haunt me for a lifetime. The man in the woods, the footsteps, and the screams were a terrifying enigma that I could never forget. I had always found solace in the remote family cabin nestled deep within the woods. It was the perfect escape from the city, a sanctuary where I could unwind and focus on work away from the hustle and bustle of daily life. The cabin was far enough from town to feel isolated, but close enough to civilization to ensure my safety, or so I thought. On this particular night, I was burning the midnight oil, wrapping up some work projects on my laptop. The clock on the wall struck midnight, and I knew it was time to call it a night. I closed my laptop and began the ritual of shutting down the lights in the cozy living area, allowing the moonlight to seep in through the windows. As I turned off the last light, the interior was eclipsed by the eerie radiance of the moon. The forest that encircled the cabin seemed to come alive in the moonlight, casting long, spindly shadows that danced along the wooden walls. I took a moment to gaze at the sight, appreciating the serenity of the night. But then something caught my eye, a flicker of movement in the darkness, a subtle shift in the shadows among the trees. I strained my eyes, focusing on the shape that seemed to duck behind one of the tall pine trees. My heart quickened. I gazed fixed on the spot, but I couldn't discern any more detail. It was so dark that I couldn't be certain I had seen anything at all. Shaking off the unease, I made my way to the bedroom, my fatigue weighing on me. I changed into my pajamas and settled into bed, the soothing sounds of the forest lulling me into a deep slumber. It wasn't long before I was rudely awakened in the dead of night by a noise. My eyes snapped open and I lay still, straining to hear the source of the disturbance. Footsteps. Quiet, methodical footsteps, resonating from outside the cabin. The sounds grew closer, moving along the wooden boardwalk that encircled the house. My heart raced as I realized that an intruder was encircling the cabin, trying the windows and doors, testing for any point of entry. I slid out of bed, careful not to make a sound, and crept towards the window. Peering through the curtains, I saw a shadowy figure moving like a wraith in the moonlight. My blood turned to ice as I watched the stranger's hand reach out to test the door handle of the side entrance. Panic surged through me as I realized the door was unlocked. I raced to the door just in time, locking it with trembling fingers. My breath came in ragged gasps, my heart pounding against my chest like a trapped bird. Through the window I met the stranger's eyes, my voice quivering as I asked, "Who are you?" The stranger's only response was a slight tilt of the head, a shrug of indifference. Their fingers reached for the door handle, attempting to turn it. My phone clutched tightly in my hand, became my lifeline as I dialed the police. I fled into the house and barricaded myself in the bathroom, the lock clicking shut behind me. In the silence, I could hear the stranger prowling through the cabin, trying the locked doors and windows. They grew increasingly frantic, their attempts to break into the house growing more violent. Finally, the stranger got inside and began rattling on the bathroom door handle. The noise grew louder and faster, creating a deafening canopy until the sound of police sirens pierced the night. The rattling abruptly ceased, and the stranger bolted from the cabin. My hands were shaking as I unlocked the bathroom door, slowly inching it open. I listened carefully to the distant voice of a police officer. Their shout, "Police department, is anyone there?" The voice assured me that the danger had passed, and I ventured out of the cabin once more. I could hear the comforting sounds of the police officers searching the area. They didn't find any sign of the intruder, and the enigmatic figure had vanished into the night. Police assured me that I was safe, but the fear lingered. After their departure, I knew I couldn't stay another night in the cabin. I packed my belongings and drove back to the city, where the lights and sounds were constant, a stark contrast to the silence of the forest. The cabin, once a sanctuary, was now a place that held memories of terror and uncertainty. I couldn't escape that feeling that I was no longer alone in those woods, that something darker had invaded the tranquility of my haven. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the forest's edge. I adjusted my position inside the camo tent, careful not to make any sudden movements. My telescopic camera was poised and ready, its lens focused on the clearing where I had set out bait to attract the deer. Dressed in camouflage from head to toe, I was determined to capture the perfect shot of the graceful creatures. Time had become an abstract concept, lost in the rhythm of the forest. Hours passed, and I dared not move a muscle, or the slightest disturbance could set my subject fleeing. The long grass in the foreground framed my shot beautifully, and the edge of the forest loomed beyond the clearing, promising a breathtaking backdrop. As the day waned, my patience was rewarded. A lone deer emerged from the woods, its cautious gaze fixated on the bait. My heart raced as I snapped shot after shot, capturing the magnificent creature in its natural habitat. Every image was a testament to the wild beauty of the forest. But then, in the midst of my photography, the deer's ears perked up, and it froze. I strained my eyes, trying to discern what had startled it. The forest fell silent, an eerie stillness settled over the clearing. I started to review the photos, and that's when I saw it. A shadow lurking at the edge of the forest. At first, it was barely discernible, but with each passing shot, it grew clearer. It was the unmistakable figure of a person, cloaked in a white mask, their unblinking eyes staring directly at me through the lens. A chill crept down my spine as I witnessed the masked stranger in each successive image. Their presence was no longer confined to the camera frame, for when I lowered the camera from my eye and glanced up, I spotted them, amidst the long grass, still fixated on me. Fear knotted in my stomach, and my instincts screamed at me to escape. I stumbled backwards inside the tent, my heart thundering in my chest. I had to get out of there. Abandoning my costly equipment, I burst from the tent and sprinted for the car. Panic coursed through my veins as I fumbled for the keys. Finally, I reached the car and slammed the door. My eyes remained fixed on the forest's edge, but the masked figure did not emerge. Time stretched on, and my fear began to ebb. I couldn't just leave all my gear behind. I had to go back. With trembling hands, I unlocked the door and ventured back into the forest, my footsteps tentative and careful. My heart raced as I neared the tent, fearing that the masked intruder might still be lurking nearby. To my relief, the gear was mostly untouched. I packed it up hastily, sparing only occasional glances at the now darkened woods. With my equipment now safely stowed away, I raced back to the car, casting one last wary glance over my shoulder as I left the forest behind. Back home, the adrenaline slowly subsided, replaced by a gnawing curiosity. I couldn't let the strange encounter go unexamined. As I downloaded the photos onto my computer, I hoped to capture a glimpse of the masked intruder, perhaps to identify them or at least understand their intentions. What I found left me breathless and horrified. Among the shots of the deer and the stranger were a series of disturbing images, close-ups of the white masked face, with chilling, soulless eyes that seemed to bore into my very soul. They were selfies, and the masked figure had been looking directly into the camera as they took them. I shuddered as I realized that the masked stranger hadn't just been a passive observer. They had left a haunting mark on my memories, a chilling reminder of the terror that lurked on the edge of the forest. My once beloved haven of wildlife photography had transformed into a place of dread. forever tainted by the enigmatic figure in the white mask.